Good people of YouTube, I'm the Watch Idiot, and it's Tudor time once again because I just realized that I've had my Black Bay 54 over here for just over 4 months now, and that is a pretty solid amount of time for me to formulate my longer term thoughts about this watch. And even more so now because I've traveled with the Black Bay 54, I've worn it through the thick of summer, and it's lived through the addition of a few new watches, and that's after the Black Bay 54's honeymoon phase. So yeah, the fact that I'm still in love with it after all this time is really quite telling. So in this video, I'm gonna get into my loves and dislikes about the Black Bay 54 after 4 months, and a part of that is the return of Tudor's TFIT Clasp Trickery after I revealed some sketchy design choices on the Black Bay Pro TFIT Clasp last year. So yeah, let's just get into it. First things first, it just has to be the way it looks. I mean, it's not possible to wear a watch that you don't like the look of. And I'll admit, right when it came out, I just liked it. I wasn't like losing my mind about it, but then I got a chance to see it in person, and that's where things really changed. And those initial impressions about the aesthetics have stayed on 4 months later, and for me, the big points were the colors being used here, especially when compared to the original Black Bay 58 gilt dial. So I'm not really a crazy huge fan of gilt dials or gold things, but you know, when it works, it just works. Just kind of like on my Seiko Alpinist Starvo 17. And here it works because the gilt dial is on the paler side, it seems, and it happens to also complement the rest of the color palette on the dial, which is what's really important here. And a big part of that is the dial, which for the first time has a very subtle sunburst finish. And the nice thing about this is that in direct light, you can see the sunburst, but then in most other lights, it just chills out and looks like just like a black dial. And actually in some lights, the dial seems to have a sort of faint warm color to it, which keeps things a bit interesting. So I don't like the way that brown tropical dials look like at all, but this sort of warm tone that I was talking about is very faint, and it kind of just pops out every once in a while, and it works just because of that gilt color and the light creamy colored lume. Oh, and I also really like the fact that we have a lollipop seconds hand here. You know, I obviously really like the full snowflake handset that all my other Tudors have had, but here it's just a nice little subtle change, because why not? Next up, the biggest change that made the biggest difference to me is the new bezel design, because we have the original non-graduated insert, which is different from the rest of my divers. And potentially the biggest thing here for me is the fact that the bezel has silver writing and it's not gilt, because like I said before, I'm not a full-on gilt guy, and I know a bunch of you guys really like the fact that the OG Black Bay 58 had everything gilt, but for me it was just a bit too much, so this kind of toned it down nicely for me. Oh, and also while we're talking about the bezel, yeah, the bezel feel and action is just incredible. I mean, Tudor knocks it out of the park every single time, and after wearing a bunch of other watches, after wearing this, I mean, just coming back to this and feeling the click on this watch or on my Pelagos is just, I mean, it's just next level. Let's just listen to it. So for me, the TFIT Clasp is absolutely critical for long-term wearability and comfort. I mean, I've been used to this system ever since I got my Pelagos 6 years ago, and guaranteed if the Black Bay 54 didn't have this TFIT Clasp, I wouldn't have been able to have worn it as much as I did, and I probably wouldn't have bought this watch in the first place. So earlier on this summer, I wore the Black Bay 54 basically as my only watch during a 1.5 week trip to Canada. And outside, it was relatively cool, so my wrist wasn't expanding, but my extended family kept the inside of our Airbnb really warm, and my wrist expanded in there every single time I went inside. So I was able to keep my watch fitting perfectly no matter what the situation was with the temperature. Because that's just one thing that I absolutely cannot stand, is when like my watch is just like stuck in one place, especially on a bracelet, and because it just has to be able to move around like this. So yeah, I mean, I'm just really happy that Tudor is slowly but surely rolling out the TFIT Clasp to all their watches, because now at this price point, a quick adjust clasp is pretty much standard fare, and it's something that I actively look for, and I give extra kudos for watches that do have it, especially at lower price points. But in this case, Tudor couldn't quite help themselves, and they just had to make life a little bit harder for all of us with the TFIT Clasp, just like they did on the Black Bay Pro. But I'll get into that in the dislike section. So yeah, a great clasp is nothing if the rest of the watch isn't comfortable, and the Black Bay 54 is just that. It's super comfortable because of the size, balance, and the bracelet. Say what you will about the riveted bracelet, but it's a super solid feeling bracelet that feels really, really good on the wrist, and for me it doesn't pull hairs at all, which is a very big plus for me. And then we have the 37mm watch head, and I love the 37mm size because it gives me a different, smaller wearing experience while not feeling too different and too small compared to all my other watches. And that's mainly because of how squared off the lugs is, and so it has a bit of a beefier, muscular stance, and also because it's got a 20mm lug width. So yeah, it wears much bigger than expected. So in videos and articles and things like that, I see more and more comments from people who have actually worn and seen the watch in person, and they say that it doesn't really wear or look as small as a 37mm dimension would suggest. And like I've said before, that's absolutely true. I mean, it's truly just a smaller feeling in wearing Black Bay 58 on the wrist. It's not a smaller sized watch comparatively. But the other plus point about the smaller watch head is that it feels super well balanced on the wrist, so it's not moving around every single time you move your wrist, and the crown doesn't dig into the wrist either, just like this over here, which is also helped by the kind of subtle crown as well. And also it's a different grippier crown as well. So yeah, I'm all for it. And after 4 months, the comfort factor was confirmed, because after wearing any other watch, many of them being very, very comfortable watches, I would wear this and I would feel just like right at home. It just works and just feels so comfortable. It's like your favorite pair of shoes. It just feels right. And that goes beyond the physical comfort, because even after getting new watches, when I would wear the Black Bay 54, the comfort and the look and experience of it just felt nice and cozy and just a safe place to be. And hey, some people might see that as bad, but I think it's good. Finally, I love the accuracy of this movement, and I usually don't talk too much about accuracy in watches, just because for me, so long as a watch is decently accurate, but more importantly fast, I'm pretty much good to go, up to like 15 to 20 seconds a day, obviously depending on the price. But I gotta say, it is very noticeable and very nice when a movement is just accurate, because I do keep track of watch accuracies in my notes for all my watches that I wear, and this movement is averaging like 1.2 seconds a day, and that's after traveling and going through airport security and x-rays and all that stuff. And of course, magnetism isn't a factor here because of the silicone hairspring, but I gotta say that over a very busy 1.5 weeks that I was in Canada for, it was just so nice knowing that the time I was seeing on my wrist was absolutely rock solid, and I didn't have to wonder, oh wait a minute, did it actually lose a lot more time or did it gain a lot of time? So, of course, it's not a big deal overall, but in the end, it's nice to actually use and check the time with the watches that we have on our wrist reliably. Finally, the dislike, and yeah, Tudor is back at it with the TFIT Clasp Trickery. So quick recap, last year I got the Black Bay Pro and I tried putting the TFIT Clasp onto my Black Bay 58 Blue to give that the TFIT experience. And turns out that they changed the mid-link width ever so slightly, so I couldn't swap just the clasps. But then I tried swapping out the end links and the entire bracelets effectively, so that would bypass that issue. But Tudor thought of that too, because Tudor added a little nub that would block the Black Bay Pro bracelet from being put into the Black Bay 58 Blue's end links. So that was a no-go as well. And yeah, if you want more information, just check out the full video that I did. So after I got my Black Bay 54, I checked the mid-link widths and if there were any nubs, and thankfully there aren't any blocking nubs, and the mid-link width is exactly the same as a Black Bay 58's mid-links. So swapping bracelets should work perfectly fine, so long as you obviously use the original end links that goes with the watch that came in, because it's fit for that mid case. That said, I personally haven't actually done the swap, but there's nothing here that would suggest that it wouldn't work. So I asked my AD just to throw in the rubber straps with the purchase, and just because why not? It would be a nice change, and I'd also be able to use the TFIT Clasp for that rubber strap, which would have been really, really cool. So then the strap came in and we tried to put my clasp onto the rubber strap, and then lo and behold, it wasn't possible. That's because the section that connects my TFIT clasp to the bracelet is not the same as what connects a TFIT clasp to the rubber strap. So technically speaking, if I could just order this tiny part here, I could do the swap, but as it stands, without ordering that little tiny piece, because it probably won't be possible, if I want to swap it, I have to spend $400 more to get another TFIT clasp just for the rubber strap. So yeah, that's pretty irritating to say the least. And yeah, if anyone has found out a way around this, yeah, let us all know in the comments. I'm sure like we would love to know if anyone else is in the same position as well. So there you have it. Let me know what you think about the Black Bay 54 as a watch or the continued TFIT Clasp trickery. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and be sure to subscribe if you want to see more videos on all the new watches that are going to be coming out and that I'll be getting in. So yeah, until the next video, good day.